What's up, everybody? It's your favorite controversy's favorite nerd. Today we are going to have a bit of a discussion. So I want to start doing something new, maybe, if you guys dig it. If not, that's cool too. There'll be discussion videos, so I won't be responding to comments. Heads up. Don't take it personal. I just feel like, once again, I say all that I need to say. I always read your comments. I'm interested to read your opinions and hear your opinions, but I'm just not going to be responding. Plus, it's going to be kind of an additional type of video rather than part of the weekly 3 to 5. So it won't be every weekend. But what I want to start doing is a segment of videos called Sit Down Saturdays. And that's when we have a discussion about something that's very topical. So it's still a discussion, but it's not conceptual like our regular discussions. It's more topical and current events. And that will be what we do. If you guys dig it, we'll do more of them. Like I said, it won't be every weekend, but it'll be as kind of needed. I have 2 more that I'd like to do. If you guys dig this, we'll do some more. Be sure to let me know. What is topical right now? This Omega Supreme madness. So last year at TFCon, it was kind of the shot heard around the world that Fanstoys was doing a masterpiece scaled Omega Supreme. They didn't seem to have a lick of competition out there. Later on, Gigapower teased an Omega Supreme, and now DX9 has now released theirs. And what we're seeing from DX9 is interesting. It's interesting on a number of levels. We're seeing fully colored renders and prototypes and stuff. And what's interesting about that is I think that we are reaching a place with third-party toys where we're going to see less and less teases. They keep trampling all over each other and stepping on each other's toes. So I think most of them are going to start playing their cards pretty close to their chest and only releasing images when the product is getting ready to go. The only exception to that seems to be Fanstoys, and I think that's because of the kind of ravenous fan base that they have. So let's talk about the Gigapower one real quick, and then we'll just remove that because it just doesn't seem to be as kind of imminent. So I think it looks great. Tons of sculpted detail, maybe a bit much, but I think it looks fantastic. A lot of people think that I'm a Gigapower hater. It's not the case at all. I think they make a great product. It's just that the one that I got was less than stellar that one particular time. I think this looks superb. My concern with this is the actual production. You know, they have a hard time releasing things quickly, being prolific, if you will. I don't think that they're necessarily a part of this discussion because I don't think that many people are kind of considering them to be a contender currently. I think that when their piece comes out, people will have the discussion of, do I trade up for theirs? But that's a different discussion. So, we'll talk about the Fanstoys one. I'll tell you what I like about it. I like the overall proportions, and I like the mix of G1 homage and updated sculpted details. If you look at the claw, if you look at the legs, if you look at the chest, all that sculpted detail, it looks great. They also have a very different arch in their kind of wings, for lack of a better term, than the DX9. Now, the rocket ship mode and all that, I think it looks fine. I don't think it looks bad, and I think that the DX9 one is equal to it. I do think that the DX9 one, the ramps are just more interesting, right? I think that it causes for a more interesting look, whereas the Fanstoys one doesn't seem to strike that with me. But I don't know if we've seen color images of the Fanstoys finished one, so maybe that's a part of it as well. Let's talk about the scaling. So the Fanstoys one seems to be a bit shorter. That may be a deal breaker for some. I think that the DX9 size is pretty good, but I can't tell exactly if there's anything that different between the two. In terms of size, it would be a big enough deal to affect your opinion one way or the other. So let's talk about one other thing with this Fanstoys one real quick. Shout out to Cape Cod John. He hit me up. He's a friend of mine. He hit me up recently and he was like, man, I'm not sure that this Fanstoys one will have a waist swivel just because we haven't seen any pictures or any footage of it that's displaying it. Well, we have since seen that. It seems like you got to get it to a pretty extreme angle if you want to have the legs up high, but it looks like it's definitely there. So that is a relief in that regard. So let's talk about bells and whistles. Now, I'm pretty sure DX9 knew exactly what they were doing when they dropped theirs, which was also kind of the shot heard around the world, especially going toe-to-toe with Fanstoys. And I like that they did this. I think that competition is good. I think that competition is healthy. And as we've all seen recently, it's been tremendous for our pockets, ladies and gents. Is that right? They made a point to talk about all of its kind of features. 2 hand cannons have the LED lights. The neck is what they call super movable. I'll be the judge of that. The armor, I'm guessing the armor of the shoulder is movable, and it has a rolling track, which is very cool. Gear joints, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I think they're talking about the pistons, which were later revealed in the knee joint. Carry the Diaclone Man on the tank. The main body can be transformed wholly. It sells all together. Now, what they're trying to do there is definitely lay their claim to the market, which they should be doing. It's the smart move to do. Most people that have had complaints about the Fanstoys one up until this point have complained that it's not coming together, that you have to make 2 separate purchases, that it's very expensive, and many people complain about Fanstoys delaying releases. So what they've done here is they said, look, this is coming together. Their price is much more moderate, and they've given you a release date of coming third quarter 2017, which you don't necessarily have any reason for not believing. Now, the thing that I think really got people's attention are these knee pistons, which we'll go ahead and look at. And they look cool, and they look far superior to the Fanstoys knee. I think we all agree, regardless of our level of fandom, that these knees for the DX9 look superior. Now the Fanstoys one, on the other hand, has the LEDs as well, has the face shield that can open and close gimmick-wise. I would imagine the DX9 one will be able to do that as well, but I'm not entirely sure. Now just speaking on the aesthetics of the DX9, to me, I don't like the wings as much, and I think that the arms look a little, at least in these pictures, which can be deceiving, I think that the arms, especially the forearms, are not quite thick enough, so to speak, gentlemen. It looks like both claws can articulate at least 2 points, which is nice for both. And I have a feeling that true to their claims, the DX9's head is going to be able to move around a lot more freely than the Fanstoys head. Now, in comparison to the G1 model, what's interesting is the G1 Omega Supreme, at least in some animation, you know how that goes, was a more detailed transformer than most. There was line work and panel work and stuff in a lot of his art, which I'm guessing they're both drawing upon because they're both using more line work than we've seen in the more recent move to a more G1 tune accuracy transformers. So, what do we have? We have 2 figures that are both moderately priced for what you're getting. They're both fairly equally priced to one another, and we can have that discussion here in a second. And they both have a number of things going for them and working against them. Let's talk about it. The Fanstoys one. What does Fanstoys have working for it? They have reputation. Reputation goes a long way. I'm a firm believer in reputation. I think reputation is like tattoos. They're easy to get, and they're hard to get rid of. And that can work for you, and it can work against you. And luckily, Fanstoys has a good reputation, with only a few blemishes along the way. Enough said. What is that reputation built on? That reputation is built on paint. That reputation is built on materials. That reputation is built on joints, sometimes a little too tight. That reputation is built on sculpt, and that reputation is built on presentation. All of those factors work towards a strong fan base for Fanstoys, and many people putting their chips on that number. What do they have working against them? The Fanstoys squeaks. This is all, once again, reputation. The Fanstoys squeaks. The often clunky engineering. And when I mean engineering, I mean the transformation process. The odd choices of what they paint and what they decide not to paint. And their release schedule. So let's talk about DX9. Nowhere near the amount of consistent, solid releases. But they have had tremendous releases at the same time. DX9's carry is still one of my favorite third-party releases to date. The last thing that we need to address is the price. So Fanstoys was 2 releases, and it put you somewhere around $400, and the DX9 one was somewhere around $250 total. And then we saw Fanstoys drop their price to kind of be in the same ballpark. So this raises 2 questions. 1, is Fanstoys cashing in? Hand money, hand over fist, where they can afford to release this at a lower price point. 2, is it more of a message being sent? Here's what I think it is. Let's talk about greed. Things are only worth what we are willing to pay for them. So if something is worth $400, that's a personal decision to you. It comes down to, are you willing to spend $400? If you are willing to spend $400, then guess what? It's worth $400. If you're not, then it's not. I believe in people getting paid for their work. Period. If you are creating a product and you think that it is to you worth this price, and that's what you ask for it, the market will adjust itself accordingly. Now, what we have from DX9, in my opinion, is healthy competition. So DX9's offering forces Fanstoys' hands to change their price to stay competitive. That, ladies and gentlemen, is capitalism. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the free market. And it's really a great example of it. And that's as far as I am willing to look into that. If somebody is like, well, dude, they're making 200% profit, I'd be like, well, it sounds like they're good businessmen. And that's on both sides. Now, if the product isn't worth that to me after the purchase, then I have to adjust my ways of being a consumer. Let's take PlayArt Sky, for example. They've moved to a more 150 to, I think, this Joker they just put out recently is going to be $300. That, to me, I just don't feel like is personally worth the price tag. So I'm not paying it. That's the market adjusting. But I was willing to spend $400. So to me, it must have been worth it. If you weren't, then obviously it wasn't worth it to you. It's not like any of this has a definitive worth. It's all set by what we, collectively and individually, are willing to pay for it. So where do we stand? I think this is going to be another one of those classic scenarios where there's not a wrong decision to be made. It's going to come down to personal preference. Because while I haven't enjoyed every DX9 release, or Fanstoys release, I don't think that either of them have made a piece that have been complete junk. So I don't expect either one of these Omega Supremes to be a complete piece of junk. I am putting my money on Fanstoys. Why? The things we discussed. Reputation. And what is paramount to me is that something is built to the standard that I expect Fanstoys to hit. Does that mean they will? No. But it means they might. I'd much rather get a release like Sovereign than a release like Lupus, and I'm just sort of edging my bets that hopefully it'll be more along the Sovereign lines. For the DX9 one, I hope that it's much more like Carry than it is like Salmar, but I'm not willing to edge that bet because the consistency hasn't been there for them. So that is how I am rolling. And that is how I feel about this entire Omega Supreme situation. In general, I would prefer all these companies cease stepping on one another. It would allow me to celebrate more of the companies and buy into more of their brands. Because honestly, there's not a third-party company around right now that I want to see fail. I'd rather see them all succeed. With people throwing away the worth of their figures every time Takara turns around and drops a preview, that might actually happen though. They might all fail. It depends on how we collectively as a fandom react and assign value. So anyway, I hope that's been fun. I hope that's been enjoyable. If you guys like it, let me know. I'll do more. I got an idea for next week's already. These won't have any skits. It'll just be something for us to sit down and have a bit of a chit-chat with on Saturdays. And not every Saturday, but some. So yeah. I hope I get the opportunity to review both, but I personally am putting my money on Fanstoys and for the reasons that I mentioned. However, I have no reason to think that the DX9 one will be bad. In fact, I'm pretty confident it's going to be good, and I think that they certainly know how to make a knee look pretty. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.